I'm loyal to the Empire.
Yes, but will the Empire be loyal to you? It hasn't always shown benevolence to your kind.
You're becoming sentimental.
Hey guys, Pete here. Today I thought I'd do a quick video about Foundation. If you haven't heard, it was announced that there will be a season 2. It's been renewed by Apple TV Plus. And a few days ago, showrunner David S. Goyer did an AMA on Reddit where he gave some more details about that and answered a lot of fan questions about the first season. So today I'm just going to go through some of the more interesting things I picked up from that. And as far as spoilers for this video, he was pretty careful not to give away future plot points. There are some references to character names and different things, but I won't be going into any great detail to explain what that means for the big picture. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. About 2 weeks ago, both Deadline and Variety published nearly identical stories saying that Foundation had been renewed for Season 2 by Apple. I'll put links to the articles in the description if you want to check them out for yourself, but it looks like they were working with the same press release. There's a statement from Apple TV's head of programming saying that they're happy with the way things are going and they're happy to make more. David S. Goyer talks about how he always wanted to bring this story to life. And Isaac Asimov's daughter Robin, who's an executive producer on the show, talks about her feelings and what she thinks her father would have thought about the adaptation. She says, David Goyer's Foundation has surpassed all my expectations by bringing my father's philosophy and ideas to the screen in ways he could never do while staying true to his work. I know my father would have been proud to see his iconic story come to life through the show's visual beauty and the layered characters, understanding full well his words would need this cinematic translation. My father was deeply indebted to his fans, to their loyalty, and always hoped his work would pass through to following generations. That they're renewing it is the only thing that they're saying at this time. There's no details about when we should expect to see more episodes, when they're going to start filming, or anything along those lines. In the AMA, when he was asked about it, he said that they have a vague release schedule, but because of the uncertainties of COVID, we would never announce a release date until a given season had finished filming. He had several questions asking if they thought they could improve things, and he said, yes, I would love to improve on a host of things, and I think you will see with Season 2 that we already have. The first thing we did from soup to nuts is say, what can we improve on? And when asked about hints, he says, Hober Mallow, Bel Rios, a strong general and a weak emperor, and the Church of the Galactic Spirit. He mentioned the characters Hober Mallow and General Bel Rios in the articles, and we also heard Gaal mention those names in the opening of the first episode. As far as the timeline and how much of the story they're telling, before the show ever came out, he pitched it as an 8-season plan, and they talked about how this was a story that was 1,000 years long. This brought up some questions for people who had read the series because the timeline in the books only makes it about 500 years past the beginning of the Foundation. Of course, the setup is that establishing the Foundation will shorten the interregnum, that 30,000 years of barbarism that was supposed to come after the Empire falls. Their plan is supposed to shorten that time frame down to 1,000 years until a new empire can take its place. So when he was asked about the show's timeline, he said that if we're able to do the full 8-season plan, we will eventually progress beyond the 500 plus FE that Asimov got to in his novels. That was always anticipated with the Asimov estate. So 500 plus FE relates to the timeline. The first year of the Foundation became year number 1 FE, and the stories he wrote went about 500 years beyond that. Some fans brought up questions about what books they're actually adapting, what they had rights to. Goyer's answer was, we have rights to all the Foundation books, just not the others. And here when he says the others, he's talking about the Empire series and the Robot series. Asimov connected those all together at the end, but they're not bundled as the same intellectual property. This was a question if they had rights to all the Foundation books rather than just the trilogy, and since they're connected, would that also include concepts from the Robot series? As you've seen with Demerzel on the show, robots have a long lifespan compared to humans. So this character is present in both series and takes on different names at different points of the story. Goyer used this to explain some of the rights issues between the series, saying, our Daneel Olivaw is part of the iRobots rights, which Skydance/Apple do not have access to. We have access to the Demerzel side of the character, if that makes sense. So there's a shared history which it sounds like the show can draw from, but they just can't use the name. This confirmed who the character was, since some book readers were questioning that, but it also brought up some questions about things we've seen happen in relation to the laws of robotics. He said that Asimov's robotics laws do exist in the universe of the show, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Demerzel is presently bound by them, and to explain further would spoil far too much. So a user named Argentus asked this question: how do you have rights to the laws of robotics but not Demerzel's book identity? They seem congruent. He said, we were given a clear dictate as to what rights we have access to, what rights are shared, and which ones are off limits. So just to bring all that together, they do have the rights to adapt all 7 books in the Foundation series. The 2 prequels where Asimov went back and gave Harry Seldon a backstory, fleshed out some of the details about how he put psychohistory together on Trantor. The original trilogy and the 2 books that came after that, where Asimov was trying to bring the story to an end. He never actually did that though. The final book, Foundation and Earth, doesn't have a definitive ending. The story in the book ends, but to say it in a spoiler-free way, there are a lot of questions about how things will proceed from there. That brings things back to him saying that they would go beyond the 500 plus years in the books and the idea of a 1,000-year tale. He touched on that saying, Gaia/Galaxia is a possibility, but I also have inside info on how Asimov was thinking of ending the thing, so if we get there, we'll be exploring that. Just to be clear, Asimov planned on writing another book beyond Foundation and Earth. He was having trouble working it all out, and that's when he decided to add the prequels. And then he died not long after he finished writing them. The implication here is that the show is setting out to complete the story if, and it's a big if in today's television climate, they get to make 8 seasons. In relation to changes they made for the adaptation, he pointed out it was a remix of the story and said, Season 1 loosely adapts stories from the first book while weaving in some characters and concepts from the prequels. For those who read the books, as surmised, a number of the show's characters are composite characters. Gaal is a combo of 2 characters, the other of which book readers may well guess. Cleon the 14th also has elements of Leopold I, etc. And about the characterization of Salvor Hardin, which there were a lot of questions about, he said, our Salvor is not the fully formed Salvor of the books. This is her origin story. We're picking her up a good 20 years before the Salvor that appears in the Encyclopedist. She hasn't yet internalized the teachings of her father, etc. He also addressed the fan sentiment that they were misinterpreting the character and what the overall story was about because there were Chosen One vibes with Gaal and Salvor. His response to that was, I will say Salvor is not a Mary Sue or a Chosen One. People are making certain assumptions, which I understand. See where the story goes. In a different answer, he continued, there aren't any Chosen Ones in the show, but we play with the concept of people feeling like they might be and other people believing they might be. So make what you will of that. Some other things he mentioned were that they had to be careful not to resemble other sci-fi series like Star Wars and Dune, which is kind of funny considering that those works were originally influenced by Foundation. He said that in the show's universe, regular human minds can't tolerate the space-time displacement on the jump ships. And we'll learn more about that as things progress. And there were a lot of people dragging him about the Anacreon attack in episode 5, and to that he said, look, here's the truth. Originally, we had a lot more time scheduled for that scene and a lot more extras planned. But because of COVID, we were only allowed 60 extras and a day and a half to film that scene. We planned a lot more gun hits, stunt falls, etc., but COVID just made it impossible. And one final question came from the user Mysterious Asparagus, who asked if we would see Seldon's younger days at some point. Goyer answered yes, and then he added, even back to early childhood. It delivered some answers, but as the show often does, it also brought up some more questions. The idea of composite characters is something that you would notice if you read the whole series, and I thought it was a little bit weird that he said Gaal was specifically 2 characters because it feels like it's more than that. But I don't think I'll get into all that right now. This seems like a pretty good place to leave things. Let me know what you think about his answers, what you think about Season 2. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.